And hi, investors. It's Nick Garner.
Hi, from Martin.
And today we are doing another area assessment. Martin and I are going to be churning these out because, there's a lot of interest in them. So anyway, this one is for Doncaster. And what we're going to do is just take a high-level overview look at Doncaster as a general destination for buying. Obviously, there's a lot, a very high level overview doesn't give you the detail, but we'll try and help on the detail as well. Martin has picked out a couple of interesting properties. So we're going to use those as kind of example properties for the typical kind of property that you would see in Doncaster, and we go from there. Now, both of us have had quite a lot of experience with the Doncaster market recently, mainly because it's a good place to buy, so we believe. And what we're going to do here is just take an objective view, look at all the various merits and demerits of the place, and then from there, you decide. What do you think? All right, now with that in mind, let's share screens, and I'm going to start with the really high level stuff. Now, this is a spreadsheet I built a while ago, like a month ago or so, and what I wanted to do is answer a big question, which is, which are the best areas to invest in this country? And I've done a couple of videos on this, but with our new assessment videos, these are also really helpful because they kind of give us a frame of reference as compared to other people or other areas, should I say. Anyway, Doncaster, if you clear the filters, as it were, there are plenty of areas that have that have good overall rankings. Now, what I mean by a ranking is I factor in gross domestic product, the population size, and so on. And we can see here that there are plenty of places like Welwyn or South Holland, but the catch with a lot of these towns and areas is the yields just aren't up to it. And uh, if you're thinking more in terms of owner occupying, well, great. So North Warwickshire is a nice area, it does nicely. Great GDP, house price inflation is very solid, and there's a certain reasonable number of active businesses. But the catch with this is that the yield isn't there. So what I'm doing is I'm filtering out everything which has a yield of less than 4%. And just based on experience, that seems to be a good point of reference. Now, Doncaster is an area that scores pretty well. If you go above 4% yield, you can see it's one of the best. The thing, there are a few things to look at. So it's one of the best for yielding in the country in terms of the area, and overall it ranks very well, actually, based on the algorithm I've built, and good yield. And the other big factor is the median house price is low enough. That's important. So you can have areas which have very low median house prices, but are basically very impoverished. So if we take Sunderland, for example, one of the issues with Sunderland, although saying that, Sunderland checks out quite well in some respects. But if we take Redcar, that's a better example. We can see, I don't know if you can see it here, but I'll make it bigger. You can see that the GDP is kind of on its way down. And that's a worry to me, actually. I would not be happy about that. And you can see same here with Copeland, and you can see that active businesses are on the decline and house prices are on the decline. So these are the kind of metrics that I'm very, very interested in. And I can see here, if we look at Doncaster and compare it to some of the strongest in the country, the thing that I like about Doncaster is that the GDP is very good and the house prices haven't gone completely crazy yet. And we'll have a look at the capital growth data in a minute. But it's just a good, solid place. GDP has tailed off a little bit, but there was COVID, so that was an issue. But Doncaster has got a a pretty robust local economy, a lot of distribution there, and house prices are on their way up. So I like this. And if we look at new businesses so the flat line means no data, but overall it's doing okay with active businesses. And I really like the active businesses metric because it just says, well, there are people here who want to build business and make their way in life. And if we look at, say, um, we could talk about Newham, but the median house price is too high to be really viable. By the way, that's why we don't really look at London in general. But we can see Manchester. Look at that for GDP growth, really strong, huge house price growth, steady on the active businesses. So, and Salford, which is really part of the same conurbation, overall the trend is up, etc. But house prices, that's the thing. Doncaster hasn't had the ridiculous house price inflation yet. And that's why I think it's a good place to buy.
Yeah, I
Let's
agree
just,
about.
I'm glad, because if you didn't, I'd be feeling very insecure. Because Martin picks the properties, and if he likes them, then if he doesn't like Doncaster, we got a problem. As in, like, oh, whoops, shouldn't have been recommending Doncaster. Now, Martin's going to talk about location stuff in a minute, but I just want to just talk about capital gain overall, because we did touch on that, and then we'll get into the yield stuff, which Martin will be leading on. Now, overall, it's got good growth. Now, it's not the same kind of high velocity growth that we're seeing in Manchester. So, for example, here, 10% real growth over the last since 2017. But my feeling with Doncaster is that it's just a steady, solid grower. And uh, whenever I look at the market, I think it's very important to look at it in context. And I did an article about this and a video which explains a lot. But essentially, we're in the boom phase, and there will be a crash. And just like 2008, there'll be a crash, and then it'll go flat for a while, and then it'll creep up again. And with Doncaster, what I'm seeing is gradually accelerating prices overall, I would say. But it's not like crazy strong growth. It's just solid growth. It's safe, and it's the kind of place where the prices are right. So the quality of housing is really nice. And Martin's going to show you that in a minute. Okay, so from a growth point of view, you have to be a bit selective about it, but it's okay. Now, from a demographics point of view, it's a it's a decent area. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and what we're looking for are dark red over light color. So the more dark colors you've got across the board, the better, broadly. And downtown Doncaster, there's some demographic issues, but overall, areas like this around here, near the race course, these kind of patches, there's a lot of really nice housing stock and good demographics. Now, there are also towns like Conisbrough and Balby, just regular working areas, Swinton, just regular working areas with regular working people, all part of what I would describe as the kind of greater Doncaster conurbation. Overall, I would rate the demographics quite good here in general, I would say. And also from a cultural point of view, it's quite integrated, which is incredibly important. Now, from a crime point of view, it's always difficult to judge crime because people think that, oh, there's a lot of crime in an area. But the reality with crime is that it's localized, and because it's localized, you could have excessive crime. And here's a good example. So we have a lot of high street crime in this area, 390 crimes in this shopping area. And just here, 10 crimes. So one crime, so one less than one crime a month, 16 crimes in this little patch, a little bit more. But the point is that overall, crime is very localized. As long as we understand that, it's fine. So then really, the only other big question is the association between crime and deprivation. And oddly enough, you would think that crime and deprivation are very linked, but they're kind of linked, but not especially. And there are lots of areas which are really economically deprived and culturally segregated that are very low crime. So, for example, in this patch, I'll just open this up for you so you can see it. This area here, only 58% of the local population speak English as their main language. So culturally, they're quite segregated from, or a large part of this population is segregated from the rest of the area, but the crime is low. So overall, I would say on a crime front, it's pretty average. I don't think it's that much of a deal. There are places like large areas of Liverpool which have excessive crime, but overall this is fine. Okay, Martin, over to you on mining risk, flooding risk, and then I guess we talk about yield, don't we?
Yeah, and I will speak about the location first.
Oh,
so
yeah.
generally, yeah, the location to Doncaster, it's really good just because it have an airport. It's called Doncaster Sheffield Airport, but you can see where it is, and it's really close to Doncaster. And here is Sheffield, so you can see how far away it's from Sheffield.
Oh, yeah, that's an international airport, isn't it?
Yeah. So basically, this is Doncaster Airport, really close, so that's why it's improving a lot. So also the fast train train going from London to Newcastle is passing. So I will show you London.
Yeah,
So
Doncaster, yeah.
it's by transport is 1 hour and 39 minutes from London to Doncaster, and if you want to go, for example, to Sheffield, it will take you more time. This will take you 2 hours and 30 minutes. So basically, this line is faster line going to Doncaster than
Wow,
this
I
line.
didn't know that.
Yeah, I checked that. So, and if you want to go to the Newcastle, for example, you will see.
Well, Manchester is really the big one, isn't it? That's the big local city, I would say,
Yeah.
or Sheffield.
If you want to go to London, it's 2 hours and 9 minutes. So just saying that from London to Manchester, it's more far away than from London to Doncaster. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
So the transport is really nice going to Doncaster from London, for example. And plus it have international airport, as we said. And there is a lot of, because we speak with locals from Doncaster a lot, so we found that there is a lot of like storages, like IKEA distribution, Amazon distribution center, and so on, just because it's in the middle between London and Newcastle. So that's what I know.
It's very good from that point of view. It's very central locations.
Yeah, and it have a lot of green space. It have a lot of local market, local shops, and you have a lot of large supermarkets. So you have a good parks as well. So it's good small city. So I basically I like the area. So basically, when you go for the coal mining issues, so basically all the X's, what you can see, the red X, you can see that's the coal mining's entrance. So basically they are risked. Your property doesn't need to be you need to be more than 20 meters away from the entrance. So basically you don't have properties who will have that kind of issue, because in this general area in Doncaster, it doesn't have a lot of coal mining. It has somewhere here next to Max Brew, like but we usually avoid properties if we said. So basically we will not suggest a coal mining issue. There is a flooding issues in Doncaster. So basically this is the because it have a large river, so basically it have a flooding issues and risks in Doncaster. This is the rivers and the sea risk. So you can see there is a lot of, but basically all the risk is it's here where they don't have a houses. It have a few part of Doncaster, like this part here, who have like a risk, and here Bentley it have also a risk for rivers and the sea, and if it's a medium risk, and plus because it have reservoir risk, and if you have both included, then it's really hard to take a mortgage. So the insurance will not insurance your property. So basically you need to buy cash, and after if you want to resell it, it will be harder because you need to find a cash buyer and so on. So basically no go just because of that. Not that it will really happen, the flooding in your property, but I'm just saying there is possibility, because we had one example of property where it had flooding and the property get flooded and the insurance covered it, and after that they don't want to cover all this area just because it have a floating risk. So you can see that the red lines, that those areas where you have, if you have rivers and the sea and flow and reservoir risk, then it's no go. You don't need to buy the property. So basically, you need to open the map and check. We will check in your front, but I'm just saying that you can see the Bentley, and here central Doncaster is no go. Not all, but generally it's no go.
Okay.
Because of that.
And have you got an example property that we can
Yeah.
talk about?
Yeah.
And also ideal example areas.
Yeah. So you can see that this is central, and demographics
So
are better.
just so you know, this is our system that we're using here, and we pull in properties that are on sale into our system, and then we can just see location and flooding risk and all sorts of stuff.
It's really central, but it has flooding risk, and you can see the price. That's why the price is so low, because they know that it will have a risk, and the rent will be around 500. So it will really yield good, but you need to buy cash, and you need to be aware that the insurance company will not cover, and you will have risk for 9% of yield, but you know that you will have a risk of floating. So if you want to take the risk, you can find. So that's why when somebody asks me, I want 9% of yield. Yes, we can give you, but do you really want to have a risk and your property to be flooded and need to pay 20, 30K to renovate it again? So sometimes it's better by lower yield.
And also just to say, the last major flood in Doncaster was 2019. It was a 1 in 1,000 year event. And well, we got climate change, and that 1 in 1,000 year event will probably turn into 1 in 10 year or 15-year event, I expect, just because the way the weather just goes completely bonkers these days. So I just wouldn't personally, I wouldn't take that risk. But if someone's that hungry for yield, nice house, they'll find a decent tenant. It basically works on some fronts, but overall, I wouldn't.
Yeah. So basically, also this, for example, this is supposed to be end of terrace, I guess. So semi-attached. So this property, for example, it needs some
nice.
Yeah, it needs some renovation, but it needs like 15K renovate, because you don't need to make it super modern for this area, because demographics are not the best, but still good, really close to center. And I'm just saying that this property will rent for 750. So I'm just saying 750 by 12, but you need to pay 140 with all the renovation. So the yield will be really good. So basically, Doncaster have really nice property stock. This is not the best part of the town. You have like a better part of town, similar type of property. You can see the property price will be 180.
So these are our favorite. Like this is where we've done a few placements around here. So this is Holyrood Road. I know that property very well.
Just random, and the rent will be 850. So 850, maybe more, but I'm saying I always take the minimum. So 850 by you need to pay everything, maybe 200 to purchase the property plus renovation. Okay, let's say 195. So 5.3. So basically, it's not the best yield, but still works. The property is really in nice area, better demographics, better capital growth, better location. So the interesting part that the semi-attached properties in Doncaster are generally going from, and for 3 it's going, depends where, but from 750 to 875. So doesn't matter if the price is 115 or 180. The rent will be similar, really similar, which is a really interesting part. But the area are not the same, and the capital growth is not the same. So generally, the good properties in Doncaster, if you plan to purchase with mortgage, I will go for around 6%, 5.8, and you will have a solid, good property. But if you want to buy cash, then I will search 6% or above. Depends in Doncaster. That's generally right now. But the market is changing every day. So I'm talking
Yeah, well,
right
the
now.
market's kind of heating up a little bit,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
And the question is whether it's going to crash hard or not. And it's all down to affordability, obviously. I I think it'll do okay in a property crash. I think it'll hold out all right. Uh, as long as the prices don't go crazy. So if you think of the median house price is 150, then if it creeps up to 200, I think that's still relatively affordable, and therefore I think it still kind of works.
yeah. Here is
Okay
one
then.
example.
Yeah.
One also example. This will run for 800. It's as I remember, it doesn't need any renovation. But I know if you want, you need to pay 145. So 800 by 12 by 145 with all included. So basically, the yield will be 6 to 6. It will be amazing. Even
Yeah.
if you buy it for, so depends.
Well, it's
But
good yield and sensible capital growth. So there are areas in Manchester which I think promise slightly higher long-term growth. But the issue with Manchester as a whole is it's very competitive and actually quite difficult to buy property there. It depends if you're inside the Manchester motorway, ring motorway. But anyway, we're talking about Doncaster. Relative to Manchester, I would say Doncaster is kind of tier two, but I prefer the housing stock in Doncaster to Manchester for the price, that is. So in Manchester, you'll get yourself 1900s, like a 120-year-old terraced, red brick terraced house, possibly in reasonable condition, and that's going to cost you 160,000 for a reasonable area. A semi-detached in a nice area like Droylsden, 230,000 nowish. Martin's better on the numbers than me, but um, here you'll get a nice house, a nice semi in good condition for 180,000 all day long, and it'll
yeah,
give you 5.6% yield or something like that. It's
yeah,
good.
and you
All
can,
right, should we
and
score it?
also, yeah, and also the transport between Doncaster and Sheffield is very close, 25 minutes, which is great.
Yeah.
So
Well, it makes it a very good. It makes the work catchment for this area very good. So, in summary, if we just stop, if you could, yeah, so we'll just do a quick wrap up, then we do the scores, we do a final wrap up. So in summary, it's just a balanced place. It's demographically balanced, good, healthy market. As you say, good yields. It kind of works, doesn't it? So let's share screen, let's do some scores. And here we go. Right, we've done one on Stalybridge. I've done some other scores, but what I want to do is start accumulating some scores, and then we'll end up with something a bit like the property scores. So we have 134 of these now, 133 of these, should I say. Lots of scores, and we started doing risk on scores as well. But the point is that over time, these are quite helpful because they build up a library, a kind of good frame of reference. And we're going to do that with cities. Okay, location. Doncaster is really
it's
good.
really good. I will give 4.
I would give a 4.2.
Yeah. So yeah,
I think
4.1.
it's quite central. It's good for load. It's just generally good for lots of places, as it were. Even the airport is actually very good. Demographic is nice. I would say demographic overall, I would say it's actually a nicer general demographic than a lot of places I've seen. And I would say generally it's a 4.1. Demographics kind of average out. So there are some places like
Um,
Tyne and Wear, which are really overall quite low. Birkenhead is quite low. But overall, I think overall Doncaster kind of works from a
yeah.
demographics point of view.
And don't get confused that that's Greater Manchester is older scores what we did, so to not
Oh yeah,
confuse you.
that's a different. Oh, am I on the right page? Uh, sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Let's go back here. 4.2, we said 4.1 on that, and
Crime is
uh,
4.
4. Yeah, it's pretty average. Sell time, it's pretty.
But it's not that hot, but I will give 3.9.
Yeah, it's kind of sub Manchester. The
Yeah,
thing
it's
about a
not like
really hot, the thing it goes two ways. So there's really an optimal turnover in a market. In other words, if it's too cold, it just everything drags out. And in a way, it's good. If it's very slow moving, in a way, it's good because you're in control as a buyer. But then there's very little stock availability. So you kind of got to, it's all swings and roundabouts. I would say that this market, from a sales turnover point of view, is reasonably balanced, I would say, slightly hot. So therefore, from a sales point of view, it's neither too hot nor too cold. I think it's a 4. It's a pretty optimal market at the moment. It moves, but
yeah,
it's
yeah,
brisk. And if
yeah.
it
I
was a
just want
dead market, there'd be no capital gain, by the way. So, you know, it's all correlated. If you have a brisk market with a lot of competition, prices will be driven up. And that's what you want as a homeowner. So 4, it's just about balanced for me. Brent,
uh, Brent is really hot
it's
as
good, isn't it?
top.
Well, we know we've placed a couple of, we work with a really good lettings agency in Doncaster, and they've placed a few houses on clients' behalf, and they've just spun out really quickly, haven't they?
Yeah,
They've been good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So basically, there is few areas in Doncaster where I will avoid, and you will not see where it have like more crime. So, or I would just wanted to add that. So basically, you will not see those kind of areas from our part.
Yeah, we
We will not
wouldn't,
suggest.
and
Yeah,
you would, now what to look out for. There are really good tools for analyzing demographics, which I'll list in um, which how am I going to? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a link to my Udemy course that I put together, and it's got loads of resources. And in that, it's a free course, and in that, there's loads of stuff to help you analyze demographics and crime and so on. If you don't have access to our system, which you probably won't unless you're a client. Sorry. Okay, yield. What do you think?
yield generally it's around 6 or more right now.
It's a healthy
So
yield, isn't it?
yeah,
So what do we
yeah,
give the scoring on the
four,
yield?
4.2 generally.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's a good score. So based on the same kind of metrics as we would do for property, if a property, for the sake of discussion, was over 4, it would be one of the highest ranking ones that we've done. And therefore, when we look at Doncaster at 4.1, that's actually quite high, I would say. It's good. There are other areas which are probably higher overall, but this one works well. All right, so let's just finish up and do our final summary. Martin, what's your final overview in this?
For Doncaster, I really like a city. It have generally it's good demographic. Location is really good for the city. The rent is high. The price is not still hot. I mean, the price of something is still healthy, still not overpriced, and you can find different kind of prices. You can find from 80K up to 200. You really have lower amount of properties who are higher priced than 200, which is still healthy, and the rent is pretty high. So I like generally Doncaster. And there is a few areas where the demographics and crime are not the best, but generally I don't suggest that they are a property. Even if the even if the yield will be 7%, but that's if the yield is more than 7%, that means there is something wrong. It will be demographic, or it will be flooding, or it will be the crime. So basically, I will avoid if if I suggest you, like, if you see some property from me that is more than 7%, you need to think that there is some issue with that. So
Mm.
generally, up to 6.8 you can find property. Everything above that is not the best. So, and how higher you go in the price, the yields will be lower. So
Yeah,
usually, for example, if a property is around 150, it will sell for 160, and it will yield around 6. If the property is like 110, the yield will be 6.5. and if the property is 180, it will sell for 190, and the yield will be 5.5. So, but how higher you go in the prices, it's better demographic. So most of the time, not always, but
Yeah, I think with Doncaster, even if you go on the low end of the market, the demographics are still relatively good. Like the kind of people that live in Doncaster are nice people, as it were. And we've seen that because we've got a couple of couple of properties which we placed in kind of economy areas, as it were, and nice tenants, nice people, just regular working types. There are areas in, for example, Liverpool, which I think I mentioned earlier. I talked about Birkenhead, but Liverpool's a good example where there are huge tracts of Liverpool which are intensively like a lot of buy to let, and the kind of tenants you attract there are just hopeless, honestly, and really not worth having. But Doncaster quality of tenant seems to be quite good overall. That's kind of what I'm seeing. So anyway, all right then. I hope Martin's connection holds out. I don't know if it's died. It might have done.
yeah,
If it
I'm
had,
here.
oh, you're back. Great. All
Yeah,
right. So that's it from me, and thank you very much. And I'll say thank you from Martin as well.
that's from me.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you.
back. All right. Thank you all very much.
Sorry, my connection dropped. Thank you.